everyone, I'm Louise Fletcher, abstract painter. I'm here answering questions in advance of my free taster course starting in May 20th. If you're already signed up for it, you got this video in an email. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not signed up, the link's below this video. It's an 8-day extravaganza of learning about art, not just abstract, all art. Anyway, let's get to today's question, which comes from Margot. Margot is painting and she says that I do have a fear of sorts, and that is of shapes, by which I mean bold, strong shapes or edges. I'm drawn to other people's work when there is something which has a degree of definition in places, but I seem to end up with hesitant, wishy-washy areas throughout. When I attempt to delineate with a hard edge or a strong contrast, I so often quickly rub away until all the edges are blended in. Yet, I feel some structure is important as it's, to me, more relatable. So thanks for the question, Margot. It's a great question. And it's very specific to you, your particular issue with hard edges. But this issue of liking things in other people's work and then not being able to make it work in our own is extremely common. The first thing I'll say about this is a very wise artist once told me, we are not always the painter that we would like to be. We all have an inherent style. We all have a personal voice. And you're beginning to connect to yours. You notice that you call it wishy-washy, but I would say soft blends. Soft blends seem to be part of your natural way of working. So when you introduce hard edges, it feels just completely alien to your work. And this is exactly the problem that I had in the beginning, where I loved, for example, when I first became friendly with Alice, my podcast co-host, Alice Sheridan, her work back in those days had a lot of sharp edges and angles, and I loved it. But whenever I tried it, just the same as you, I couldn't stand it. It just didn't look right. And the reason it didn't look right is I know Alice a lot better now. We are completely different people with completely different life experiences. Alice is quite precise and analytical and organized in a way that I'm not. So it would make sense that she painted in a different style. Also, she had a graphic design background, which I don't have. So there were lots of things feeding into, she lives in a city with all straight, hard edges. I live in the country with all soft, rounded shapes. So there are all sorts of things feeding into the fact that what feels natural to her and therefore looks wonderful in her painting is alien when I plop it down in mine. And so I would do the same as you, Margot. I would start blending it all out again, and then I would think, oh, I don't have any straight lines. Over time, through trial and error and practicing, I've discovered that sometimes I can put a small straight line in and feel okay with it, but more, I've found other ways to bring structure into my work, and hard edges and hard, firm shapes are not the only way to do that. So there are, for example, now I'll use a lot of pattern in my work and contrast that with mine don't tend to be soft blends. Mine tend to be very rough and organic and energetic marks, which I love, but they don't come with straight edges. So the pattern that I use with stencils or in other ways of making pattern, those add some structure. Also, I found I love collaged words because letters are a wonderful graphic element, but I distress them to the point where they're not readable, so I'm getting the graphic benefits but not distracting from my art with a big word. These won't be your solutions, and they didn't come to me overnight. Also, by learning principles of composition, I can bring structure into a painting that has very soft edges. So a soft edge painting can still be structured. All this takes time, it takes practice, it takes some knowledge of the principles of design or the principles of composition, which you may or may not have, you don't say. You can use colour to add structure. So a repetitive colour, moving around the painting in different ways can bring structure to something that otherwise is quite organic. There are many, many ways to bring structure other than the big shape. So that's the first thing I want to say. And you work your way to that as you make more and more paintings. You make a lot of failures as you try different things, but you find things that work for you. The second thing I wanted to say is we often like things in other people's work and hang things in our homes that are nothing like we will ever make. That's okay too. There might be some element of what that person's doing that you eventually bring into your work, but there doesn't have to be. We often buy art, and people buy our art, this is good to know, in order to bring a jolt of something different into our lives. We want something that wakes us up, that makes us feel good when we look at it, that brings alive a different part of ourselves, or maybe gives us an aspect of our emotions or personalities that we don't personally experience, but now we get to experience it through the art of someone else. So there's nothing wrong with being drawn to things that might never make their way into your work. Or they might, because the other thing that can sometimes happen is you might, and I don't know if this is you, Margot, but it's sometimes the case with people, that we're afraid to put our real selves into our painting. We're afraid to see those strong, bold marks and strong, bold shapes. So we smush out the edges, just like we do with ourselves in our everyday life. Smooth out the edges, don't scare the horses, as my grandma used to say. So sometimes this is an issue of being afraid to bring your full self out. And therefore, you will get to that gradually when you're ready in time. Don't worry. But sometimes, as I say, it's just an issue of that isn't you. What I want to reassure you, Margot, is you will find out which it is over time. Lots of practice, lots of painting. And I don't know if you have any plans to stay on after the free course and maybe do my full course. But if you did, then we are going to get into principles of composition and ways to structure a painting that don't require having big, strong shapes and bold lines. But like I say, even if you don't do that, the main thing is to relax into it, to just keep trying to bring in the things that appeal to you, and just notice how much you can allow yourself, and also be okay with if you can't. Because there are other ways to bring structure into a painting. And if you're not thinking about the full course, maybe get a book about composition, or watch some videos on YouTube about composition in the type of art you do, because you don't say which type of art you make. But that will help too, so that you can find other ways to bring structure in, which don't have to be things which don't feel natural to you. Okay, I hope that helps, Margot. I know I've given you several different answers, but there are several different answers to this, and without knowing you personally, I can't give you the right one. And I hope that those several different answers have helped different people who perhaps are having the problem in different ways. All right, take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.